Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, the Brooke Ashley, and today we are here to discuss The Real Housewives of Orange County, Season 16, Episodes 1 and 2. I will say that OC has always been a favorite of mine. I always thought that the drama was good. I always felt like the ladies understood the assignment. These last few seasons have been a kind of but I feel like we are in for a treat. Since Heather is back, there was no way that I could start this off without some champagne. So let's get it started, all right? You guys already know how we do over here. All right. Cheers, y'all. So good. So, with all that being said, let's just jump right on into this recap because we don't have a minute to spare. We start off the premiere episode with Miss Heather Dubrow pulling up in her brand new 22,000 square foot home. Absolutely stunning. This is the material that I want to see, okay? So we see Heather and her family. They're sitting down for dinner. The chef has made some pizzas, and the pizza looked absolutely delicious, so my mouth was watering. I always find Heather's scenes with her family to be a lot of fun. I think her kids are very funny, and I also love Botched, so it's just really funny watching Dr. Terry on Botched and then on Housewives. Now we see a short scene with Gina and Emily. They're going to Pilates together, and I'm gonna keep it real with you. Gina and Emily are not my favorites. I don't feel like they bring a whole lot, especially Gina. I'm like, Gina girl, I'm still unsure as to how you got on this show. Like, I don't think that Gina's interesting or entertaining. She really aggravates me. I'm just not into her. We find out in this short scene that Emily's husband, Shane, has finally passed the bar exam, child. And I mean, Shane has taken the bar exam, I think Emily said, for like almost a decade. And remember that Shane comes from a very rich family, hence why it wasn't the biggest deal to him that he couldn't seem to pass the bar exam. We find out that Gina and her boyfriend Travis are still going strong. Everything is good in their household. He's loving to her children. She likes his kids. It's a match made in heaven. So now Gina starts discussing the court case with her ex-husband. So she's telling Emily how she felt alone, going through the whole ordeal, how she didn't want to stress Emily out or tell anybody. And then Emily says, you could have called me, like I would have been there for you. And I will say that Emily and Gina do seem like they have a very strong friendship. I definitely think that the reason why they're so close is because they were both newbies at the same time. They both came on around season 12 or 13. So that's the reason why they're so close now. Emily's comforting Gina, and then Gina goes on to say how when she had to testify against her ex-husband, it was really tough on her. And it really brought up a lot of bad memories. But you can tell that Gina is still really hurt about this whole situation because when she was in her confessional talking about it, she was like, I can't even discuss this anymore. Like, I'm done. And she gets up and walks out of her confessional. So the pain is still there and it's still very fresh. So now we move on to the next scene with Heather. Heather is out for a walk and she's with her good friend, Nicole. Now, word on the street, Miss Nicole was supposed to be a full-time cast member, but for some reason, Bravo decided to make her a friend of the show. That's the thing about the Housewives, baby, they will have you film an entire season. And then at the very end, they'll say, okay, you know what? I mean, you were cool and all, but we're going to demote you to friend of. So you never really know when you're filming these shows. Now, with all the drama going on with Miss Nicole, Nicole should have been a full-time housewife. That's all I'm going to say. But don't worry, we're going to get on Nicole and that whole mess real soon. So anyhow, Heather says that she loves her friendship with Nicole, and they have been friends for 8 years. Heather's letting Nicole know that she's having a party at her house. Nobu is going to be catering. And she's like, I'm going to be meeting up with the manager of Nobu next week to talk about the menu and finalize the plans. And I would love to have a girls' lunch. Nicole says, sounds good. And then she goes on to ask if she can invite her friend Noella. She thinks that Noella will hit it off with Heather, and Noella is one of the new housewives to OC. So now Heather goes on to ask if Nicole knows Shannon. Nicole says that she does know Shannon. They used to be friends way back when because their daughters were the same age. So Heather's like, okay, cool. Well, I kind of reconnected back with her. Me and Shannon have a very rocky relationship. And if you've been watching Orange County, then you know that Shannon had it out for Heather. I have always felt in my heart that Shannon was always intimidated by Heather and also very jealous. For some reason, Heather really intimidates a lot of these ladies. And I think it has to do with her being so elegant, her being so down to earth at the same time, and her also having a boatload of money. I think that a lot of these women really can't take it. I remember how Heather had Miss Alexis Bellino rattled. Heather says in her confessional that she's only bumped into Shannon a total of 3 times within the 5 years that she's been off the show. She goes on to say that, while they never had a great friendship, they have reconnected recently, and she's hoping that things can change. And we already know that that's wishful thinking. But again, we're going to discuss that later on. Now we pivot over to Gina and Emily. They're going to get some Botox done, and the doctor is Dr. Jennifer Armstrong. Dr. Jennifer is a brand new cast member of OC, so we're going to see what she's going to give. So anyhow, they're going in to get touched up. Gina's excited. She says that she met Dr. Jennifer at Bronwyn's vow renewal party last year. Remember how Bronwyn was a cast member last season? She had 9 children. Her and her husband had like a kind of an open marriage. Bronwyn was going through it last season, okay? It was just a mess. But she's no longer on the show. Bravo fired her. And so she's out, and her good friend Dr. Jennifer is in. Gina says that when she met Dr. Jennifer at Bronwyn's vow renewal party, Dr. Jennifer offered her free services and told her to come to her office anytime. I said Dr. Jennifer was smart. That was not her just being nice and friendly. That was her trying to secure a spot on this show. I don't know how many times I'm going to keep saying it, but the Real Housewives franchise is the hottest ticket in town, and everybody wants to be on it. The money, the platform, the opportunities that come with it, the events that you get to go to, all the fabulous things that you get to experience. I mean, who wouldn't want to be on the show? Now, we get to know Dr. Jennifer. She has 3 kids, a husband, and her husband, it seems, is a stay-at-home dad. I know she says that he owns some business where he sells luxury vacation rental properties, but I pretty much got the impression that he just ran out and got a job because the camera started rolling. I will say that I'm very intrigued by Dr. Jennifer. I'm curious to see what she's going to give for the rest of the season. So far, so good. We move on to Heather's girls' lunch at the fabulous Nobu. And Nobu is one of my favorite restaurants of all time. That food is absolutely amazing, all right, to die for. But again, we are not here to talk about my favorite restaurants. So anyhow, Heather is meeting up with the general manager. They're going over the details of her party. She's excited. She lets us know that a Heather Dubrow party is an immersion of fabulosity. And I believe it because Heather, again, has style, class, and mama knows she's going to have some food at her events. Unlike a lot of these other housewives, y'all need to take notes because I'm tired of watching you guys with hardly a morsel of food. But again, I digress. Heather finishes up her conversation with John, the general manager of Nobu, and Noella and Nicole arrive. So they're all seated. They pop open a fresh bottle of champagne. And now Heather wants to know, how did Nicole and Noella meet each other? Noella says that they met at a private airport bathroom and it's been love at first sight. Nicole says that they had the same friendship bracelets and that's what clicked for her. So now we find out more about Noella. Noella's husband has the sweet James billboards all around the OC. He's a personal injury lawyer and he makes a lot of money. Noella lets us know that they live a fabulous life. They have a 10,000 square foot home. Her mother lives with them and life is just amazing. So while Noella's going on about her luxurious and fabulous life, in real time, right now, currently, her and her husband are going through a divorce. We're going to see this all play out the rest of this season. Now, on top of them going through a divorce as we speak, it has been revealed that James has no money. He owes $6 million to the IRS. He got hit with 2 federal tax liens, so it's a mess. I was reading some reports about how not only is Noella's financial future up in question, but the fact that this man most likely will not have the money to pay her spousal support or alimony or child support because James is broke. Just a hot, raggedy mess. I'm just gonna need Bravo to really vet a lot of these ladies who get on because it just seems like there is always something. A lot of these ladies are living a lie. They don't have the money that they say they do. Their husbands are out scheming. Some of them are out scheming, i.e. Jen Shaw from SLC. My thoughts about Noella, she seems pretty cool. She seems like she's going to have a very interesting storyline. I mean, anytime one of these ladies is going through a divorce and there's some money problems, that's always going to be a guaranteed storyline, okay? So I'm going to be there tuned in. And what also makes Noella intriguing for the OC cast, she is OC's first biracial housewife. So I said, look at Bravo trying to bring us some diversity on every single cast. And on top of that, Noella is bisexual, and she and her husband have a sex dungeon that she thinks is just the coolest thing in the world. So while Heather, Nicole, and Noella are having their girls' lunch at Nobu, we see Shannon, Emily, and Gina having their girls' lunch at another restaurant. So Shannon tells Gina and Emily all about Heather, how she and Heather have now reconnected, they're cool again, and how she wants Gina to meet Heather. She thinks that they're going to hit it off because they're both from New York. She says that Heather is really nice and generous and just an all-around fun girl. So now Shannon brings up Heather's friend Nicole. She's like, yeah, Heather brought up how she's friends with this woman named Nicole James, and I remember her back in the day because our girls went to preschool together, and back in the day, her name used to be Nicole Weiss. Then she says that Nicole was a Pam Anderson lookalike and how she used to date Kid Rock. So I'm thinking in my head, why is Shannon saying all this and why does she seem so bothered? So we find out that Shannon knows something that's not good regarding Nicole and how she does not want this to be the same person that Heather's hanging out with. Why? We don't know yet. So now we flip back to Heather with her girls' lunch with Noella and Nicole. She says to Nicole, Shannon was asking me about your maiden name. Is your maiden name Weiss? And so Nicole says yes. So we find out as a viewer that this is the same Nicole that Shannon was talking about. Again, we still don't understand why Shannon seems uneasy about Nicole being in their friend group. So now we move on to the next scene, and it's the lunch with Shannon, Heather, and Gina. They're at a restaurant called Javier's, and Shannon reveals that she was just at the same restaurant 12 hours ago throwing back shots with Emily and Gina. She says that while they were throwing back shots, Heather Dubrow is in the same restaurant and they talk briefly. Now, the way Shannon is saying it, we already know that something went down, but she just won't say what happened. So now Gina and Shannon get to the table. Heather's already there. So now we see Heather and Gina talking, and they're bonding over them being from New York. Now Heather tells Gina and Shannon how she's having a party and how it's going to be catered by Nobu. She wants them both to be there. She's like, feel free to bring a friend if you'd like. My friend Nicole's going to be there. And the minute Heather says Nicole's name, Shannon's face turns. Then Heather says to Shannon, And you're right, it's the same Nicole. Her maiden name used to be Weiss. Heather gets up to use the restroom, and Gina's like, Shannon, are you gonna tell her? Like, you need to tell her. Like, tell her. Tell her what you told me. So Shannon's like, Gina, shut the F up. Like, this is not the right time. This is not the right place. You, me, and Emily both made a pact that we would not say anything. So while this is going on, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's obviously something big. Like, I want to know what it is right now. Gina reveals in her confessional that Shannon told her and Emily the night before that Nicole had sued Dr. Terry Dubrow, which is Heather's husband, 16 years ago over an alleged botched boob job. Now, if you've been watching these past few seasons, Gina cannot hold water. And Shannon made a grave mistake telling Gina anything. Anytime anybody has ever told her a secret, she has ran and blabbed and made things 10 times worse. I have never liked Gina. I think that she's annoying. I think that she's very desperate to secure her spot on this show because she needs that money badly. But Shannon, you made a mistake running your mouth. You should have kept your mouth shut. There was no reason to say anything. If you have a concern, a question, say it to Heather. So Heather comes back from the bathroom and she's like, do y'all want to see my house? Like, it's all built. Shannon, you haven't seen it since I left the show, girl. Like, you know, you want to see it? It's all up and done now. So they're both like, yeah, sure, I want to see it. So Heather takes them to her home and they are in absolute amazement. Gina is like a kid in a candy store. She is like, OMG. Heather's house high-key reminds me of the Waldorf Astoria. Absolutely stunning. Heather's giving them the grand tour. She is showing them one of her favorite bathrooms, her office, Terry's office, the butler's kitchen, which is fabulous, by the way. Then she's showing them her garage, which literally looks like a parking garage. Like, it could definitely hold at least 15 cars in there. Then she's showing them the movie theater, the game room, and then we get to the best room in the house, her closet. And her closet looks like an actual boutique. And I love how she has that press for champagne button in her closet as well. Just chef's kiss.
I love it.
Now let's talk about Shannon for a few minutes. Shannon looked like she could have passed out. It was clear that Shannon was feeling some sort of jealousy. I mean, her face got really tight. She couldn't even hide it. I was like, what a shame, Shannon. And then when she went on about how she felt triggered being in Heather's home and being in the neighborhood again, because remember that Shannon and Heather were neighbors at one point. They lived in the same neighborhood when she was still married to her ex-husband, David. And Shannon had a huge home too. I think that Shannon's home with David was 16,000 square feet, so a gorgeous home as well. But I think her having to downsize, the divorce, her not getting the large divorce settlement that she thought she was going to get, I think that it was all making her feel a sort of way. But I just said, Shannon, can you at least crack a smile, please? It's a terrible thing to be jealous. It really is. It's sad. I think that it's a lazy emotion because while you're sitting up there jealous of somebody else, you could be getting your own life together and putting all your focus on how to better yourself. Just saying. But to see how Shannon looked really hurt having that fabulous tour of Heather's home. So we get to the night of Heather's sushi party at her fabulous home. We have Heather's friends there, and then we have Gina, Emily, Shannon, Noella, and Nicole show up. You can tell that Shannon is a little bit tense. She's nervous. She's afraid that Gina or Emily might open up their big mouths and say what she told them regarding Nicole and Heather. Gina's saying that she feels bad because she's smiling in Heather's face, knowing this big secret. So we close the episode out with Gina saying that she just can't not tell Heather, and we see her pulling Heather to the side, and then the next thing that we know, Heather is telling everybody to get the F out. She's walking upstairs, and she wants everybody out of her house. She wants the cameras gone, and she no longer wants to do this show. And then we see "to be continued" flash on our screens. Now that is how you do a season premiere. So on to episode 2, where all the drama goes down. We see Nicole and Emily talking. Emily says it's just so weird because Nicole is so nice. I can't even imagine her suing Terry and then her doing this and Heather not even knowing about it. We see Dr. Jennifer and Noella talking. Dr. Jen says that she met Noella a year ago through Bronwyn and how she can't relate to Noella because Noella doesn't work and is a stay-at-home mom. If you want to work outside the home, that's great. If another woman wants to stay at home, that's fine too. Like, I don't understand why there always has to be shade. It always comes off as jealousy, in my opinion, because Jen, it seems like you're the one who's bringing in all the money in your marriage. Shannon nervously greets Nicole. You can tell that she's on edge. You can tell that something's not quite right. I was like, Shannon, can you just be calm? Like, Shannon does not have the ability to just be like cool and collected. Everything with her is always at a level 10. She is always just like on the edge of like breaking down. It's like, girl, just bring it down a few notches, please. Emily and Gina start complimenting Nicole on her boobs. They're like, oh, they look great. You know, have you got them done? And Nicole's like, yeah, I actually got my implants done 4 times. It's a really long story. Like, I mean, a really long story. So now they're kind of looking at her, putting 2 and 2 together. Like, I wonder if she did sue Terry now. You can tell they're trying to fish for information without making it obvious that they know what Shannon told them. So now we see Dr. Terry come in, and when he came into the room, we see Nicole's face. She looks kind of nervous, and it's like, okay, it's a dead giveaway that maybe the rumors are true that she did sue Terry back in the day. So now we see Heather walk over to Gina, and she's like, Gina, I was telling my mom about you. I was telling her how much we bonded over both being from New York. And so Gina's like, oh, really? Like, that's great. And you could tell that she wants to just let out what she knows, but she doesn't know how to say it. So she finally says, Heather, can we just talk for a few minutes to the side, just me and you? So Heather's like, yeah, sure. Baby, they sit down to talk. Gina is stuttering over her words. She's like, Heather, like, I don't know how to say this, but I knew that I had to say something because if I don't say something now, then you're going to think that I was in on it and I like you so much and I feel so bad. And I'm one of those people, if you had to tell me some bad news, just tell me straight out the gate. I don't like all that, girl, you know, hey, and before I say this, just tell me. If you want to piss me off, drag out what you have to say, especially if it's bad news. Just tell me off the gate, all right? Be like, Brooke, I have some bad news. Here it goes. All right, I promise you, I'll prefer that over you dragging it out because now I'm going to think it's even worse than it already is and I'm going to get pissed off. And plus, I get so much anxiety when folks do that. Like, just tell me. So Gina finally blurts it out that Shannon told her and Emily a few days ago that Nicole had sued Terry back in the day over a botched boob job. You could see Heather's facial expression, like she was looking like she could have killed everybody, like she was pissed. So while this conversation is happening, Shannon, Emily, and Nicole are sitting down and they're talking. Emily says to Shannon, Shannon, did you say something to Heather about it? So now Shannon's like, Emily, are you really doing this right now? Like, why are you saying anything in front of anybody at this party? Like, shut up. So now Emily's like, well, girl, I just want you to know, I saw Gina pull Heather to the side in the kitchen, and she's telling Heather what's happening right now. So the cat is already out the bag. So Shannon is like, what the F? Are you effing kidding me right now? Like, I know you are lying to me. Like, Shannon is freaking out because exactly what she did not want to happen has happened. Shannon runs over to where Heather and Gina are sitting, and she's like, Gina, are you kidding me right now? Like, please tell me you did not do what I told you not to do. Like, please tell me you didn't say anything. So Heather is sitting there. She's calm, but she's enraged. and she's about to blow up on everybody. So Shannon sits down and she's like, Heather, I never meant to hurt you. Please hear what I'm saying. All I want to say is that the Nicole that I knew back in the day sued your husband. You can tell that Heather is not trying to hear a word of this. She gets up and says, stay right there, okay? I'll be right back. Baby, we see Heather walk up the stairs like we did at the end of episode 1. And she's like, no, 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 show's over. We're not doing this. We see her go into her room and she's telling Terry what just happened. He's like, are you effing kidding me? So pretty much the night has been ruined. So now we see Emily talking to Nicole, and Nicole admits that yes, she actually did sue Terry back in the day, but it was because her lawyers had forced her into a lawsuit. But she dropped the lawsuit and she just loves both of them to death. So now everybody's minds are blown. They're like, what the F? This woman just admit that she actually did sue Terry, but her and Heather are friends. Like, how does this work? So now Emily starts making Nicole feel bad, and she says, the fact that you guys are friends, you should have cleared the air on that. Now, Emily, you just met Nicole and Heather 2 seconds ago. Don't say anything to Nicole. That's not your place. And you could tell that Nicole felt really bad. So now Emily and Nicole get into it. Emily's calling Nicole uneducated and trash. And now Nicole is on the verge of tears. I was like, there was no reason for that to escalate. It wasn't your place to question Nicole about anything. This is between Nicole and Heather and Terry, not Nicole and you, Emily. Emily, you need to focus on that sham of a marriage of yours. And that was real nasty of you to say that she was trash and say that she never had a job in her life. Okay, so what if she didn't? Are you mad? Are you mad that she could coast by on her looks and you couldn't, sis? So Emily's screaming, making a fool of herself. Gina takes her outside and she's trying to calm her down. We see Nicole crying. Dr. Jennifer says in her confessional that the worst thing that you could ever do is sue a doctor, and how if Nicole ever did that to her, she could never sit at her table again. So now Emily and Gina come back inside. Shannon is like, what just happened? Like, I'm just so confused right now. Emily says, you were right. I asked Nicole and she admitted that she did sue Terry 16 years ago over a boob job. So baby, now we see Heather and Terry come back down the stairs and they pull Nicole into a private room. So Terry's like, are you Nicole Weiss? You sued me. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like they're about to kick this lady out of their home. Nicole looks scared as anything. So she's sobbing and she's like, yes, that was me. Like I was forced into the lawsuit for my lawyers, but I dropped it. So then Terry's like, why didn't you ever tell me? Why didn't you ever tell Heather? So Nicole's like, I had no idea. Like I didn't know how to say anything. I just didn't want to make it weird. Like, I'm just so sorry. So she is like sobbing. Like she is hysterically crying. Like she is scared for her life right now. So Terry says, you dropped the suit. It's fine. Heather says, girl, doctors get sued all the time. It is not that big of a deal. We love you. Like, stop all this crying. Gives her a big kiss and a hug. And I was just so touched. Like, I know that's right. Like, that was just such a beautiful scene because the way they extended so much grace to her. And I personally felt like Nicole was in a tough spot because how do you bring that up to your friend? Like, girl, I don't know how to say this, but I think I sued your husband like a decade ago. You know, I mean, I dropped the suit, but this is what happened. But I just wanted to tell you, like, how do you say that? I feel like she was in between a rock and a hard place. And there are some people who are immature and they wouldn't take that news well, and they probably would have ended the friendship. I feel like, or I'd like to believe that I would have been like Terry and Heather. I feel like I'd been like, girl, that was so long ago. I mean, me and my husband are super rich. Like, everything is fine. You dropped the suit. It's not that big of a deal. And I'm saying that as somebody who can hold a grudge. But I do feel like in this situation, it is tricky to navigate. And I don't feel like Nicole was wrong for keeping it a secret because she was just nervous. This situation reminded me of when Peggy came on to OC. I don't know if you guys are watching those earlier seasons, but there was a woman named Peggy. She was on for only one season. She was on the same time as Alexis. And she was friends with Alexis. They were friends for like a few years. And then when she met Alexis's, well, now ex-husband, Jim, she had found out like, oh my gosh, I actually dated Jim, years ago. And so she didn't know if she should say anything to Alexis. And then when it came out that Jim and Peggy had dated, Alexis got upset. I always felt like Alexis was very immature. I don't feel like that's anything to be upset about. Like, you do know that your spouse has dated other people before you, right? But I say all that to say, that's what this situation reminded me of. And I just feel like Nicole was in a really tricky position, and I don't fault her for not saying anything because she probably was afraid that Heather would end the friendship. I don't know. Let me know. What would you have done? Would you have told Heather and Terry before, or would you just have kept it quiet? Let me know. I will say that this whole debacle is a lesson in keeping your mouth shut and keeping some secrets with you to the grave. I know that Nicole probably felt never in a million years would this have come out about her suing Dr. Terry 16 years ago. I know she regrets ever saying anything to Shannon, but I'm sure she felt that her and Shannon's paths would never cross again. But honey, they've crossed. Shannon remembered that piece of information, and look at all the mess it caused. Heather, Terry, and Nicole are all good. Everything is fine. They are all on one accord. So Heather walks out the room, and she is on a mission to find Shannon and Gina. She's like, come here for a minute. Like, I want to talk to both of y'all outside. Gina's nervous as hell. She's like, Heather, I'm really sorry. I just want to apologize to you. It wasn't my intention. She's trying to give Heather a hug. The way Heather did that, I said, Heather, you and I are the same person because that's the exact energy that I would have given Gina. So Heather says, Gina, I don't really care that you raised your voice in my home. That's not really what I'm upset about. What I'm upset about is the fact that you would tell me this at my own party. You need to learn time and place. And like I said, there is a time and a place to do things. There is a way to do everything. You don't sit up here at somebody's event where they spent good money on and you ruin it telling them some crazy gossip about their husband. Do that some other time. Gina was dead ass wrong for that. And like I said, Shannon is an idiot for even confiding in Gina in the first place. Gina gets off on running her mouth. Shannon also gets off on being an instigator. Shannon reminds me of Lisa Barlow from SLC because Lisa Barlow likes to pull all this stuff. She likes to be sneaky. She likes to throw rocks and hide her hand and act like, she's innocent. And that's what Shannon likes to do because Shannon was wrong for ever saying anything about this. Again, she should have told Heather directly about what she knew about Nicole, not telling everybody and their mother. And then when it gets back to Heather, now she wants to act like, oh my gosh, why are y'all mad at me? It's all that stuff. I was also screaming when Heather said to Gina, I know they say don't shoot the messenger, but in this case, it's shoot the effing messenger. And she had Gina shook. So now Heather turns to Shannon and she's like, what you did, Shannon, was shitty. Like, I really cannot believe that you would sit up here and do this. So of course, Shannon's upset. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to leave right now. Like, I don't need to take this. I'm going to leave. Then Shannon says that she's livid because she never wanted to hurt Heather. Shannon, that's absolute BS. I don't buy it for a minute. I think that you have always harbored secret jealousy and resentment towards Heather and Terry, and you wanted to purposely shake up her party and ruin it. So Heather goes back into her house and she's like, okay, guys, party's over. Thanks for coming, but it's a wrap. So now Heather is pissed because she's like, what a shame because thousands of dollars of food gone to waste. Everybody leaves Heather's house and then we see Shannon come back in. She says, again, Heather, I just want to apologize. I'm so sorry. Like, I consider you a friend and I just want us to get back on track again. So Heather's like, baby, we have been down this road too many times. You keep burning me and I am not interested. I am done. And I completely understand because there's only but so many chances that you can keep giving somebody. Heather and Shannon have been down this road way too many times, and Shannon blew it. Like, for you to pull a stunt like this, I would really have nothing to say to you because we will never be friends again. So now we move on to the next scene. We see Emily FaceTiming Heather. She says that, again, she wants to apologize for what happened at her home last night and how she and Gina would love to go out to lunch with her and just sit and talk. Heather says that she has a lot of mixed emotions, but she is willing to talk to them. Heather's nicer than me because I would have had Emily and Gina's numbers blocked, so there would be no invite to lunch because I would not even be picking up your calls. You'd have to send me a Neiman Marcus gift card and a few bottles of champagne if you really want to make amends with me, because you don't get to come into my home, show your entire ass, bring me some bad news, and then think that a sorry is going to cut it. That's not how it works. Then we see a parallel scene with Shannon at home and Noella FaceTimes her. They're discussing last night. Shannon says again how she never meant to hurt Heather and how she should not have said anything to Gina in the first place. She goes on to thank Noella for Noella being so kind to her last night and not making her feel like she was the villain. Then she goes on to say how she already knows that Gina and Emily are going to peg this all on her, like she did this on purpose and to hurt Heather, but she's not going to take the blame for it. So now we move on to Heather and Terry. They're at home discussing what the hell just happened last night. Terry says that was a gorgeous party, and for it to get ruined like that, like, what a shame. Then he goes on to ask, what would possess Shannon to dig up something negative from 2 decades ago? Heather says, I don't know why she would do it, but I feel like she probably harbors some resentment from the past, or she just wanted to hurt us. Heather goes on to say that the most irritating part was the fact that she spent $36,000 on that party and they didn't even get to dinner. So Terry's like, you spent $36,000 and y'all didn't even eat the dinner? Like, what? So he's also irritated because it's like, that's just money going to waste. And again, Heather, I understand that you were pissed off and you had every right to be angry because I would have been angry as well. But I feel like you went overboard, ending the party early. I would have just kicked Shannon, Gina, and Emily out of the party. Like, there's no way that I was going to kick everybody out because I don't think that everybody should suffer because of these 3 clowns. I mean, you were better off just going to Neiman Marcus on a random Tuesday and having a good day, okay? Get some shoes, a few purses. I mean, come on. $36,000 and you didn't even get to enjoy the dinner. Heather, next time, just kick a few people out and then still resume the party, okay? Next, we see Emily and Shane having a date night, if that's what you want to call it. I'm going to keep it real with you. I don't see any chemistry. I don't see any romance. I don't see any connection whatsoever between Emily and Shane. I was shaking my head when she was like, babe, we've been married for 13 years now. Did you think that we would make it this far? And he was like, no, I thought I'd be dead by now. And the way he just seems so apathetic, he just seems like he could care less about her. And she's trying to be all cute, like, oh my gosh. And it's like, Emily, are you seeing what we all see? I still remember when Emily did that burlesque show in Vegas. I think it was either last season or the season before last. And he didn't even come and see her. A mess. So we move on to the final scene of the episode, and it is the lunch with Gina, Emily, and Heather. Gina says that she is anxious as hell because Heather is very intimidating, and the way Heather schooled her like she was a little girl the night of Heather's party. So Gina starts it off, and she says, Heather, I just want to say, I am so sorry about last night. I feel awful. I feel like I ruined your night and that was not my intention. Like, please forgive me. So now Emily jumps in and she apologizes to Heather as well. So Heather says, thank you for your apologies, but you guys were put in a very tough position by Shannon. Now, I personally don't feel like Gina and Emily were in that tough of a position because it really wasn't their business. And they're new friends to Heather. Like, they just met Heather a few days ago, so there really shouldn't have been this big obligation to tell Heather what Shannon told them. That was on Shannon and Nicole. Now, Gina tries to score some sympathy points from Heather, and she brings up how her ex-husband was having an affair. So she goes on to say that before she found out about her husband's affair, he invited her to his mistress's barbecue. She had no idea that that was his mistress, but everybody at the barbecue knew. So she says, "Do you know how embarrassed I felt when I got home and I found out that this was my husband's mistress and everybody knew except me?" She says that she wishes that somebody at the barbecue would have pulled her to the side and told her. I said, "Gina, let me just stop you right there. Before I take out my world's tiniest violin, let me just tell you, it's not about you. It's about Heather. Stop trying to make this about yourself to get off and have Heather feel sorry for you. Just apologize, own up to what you did, and do better. And girl, please miss me with the fact that you had no idea that Matt was cheating on you. You didn't have any idea, sis. You and your kids were living in Orange County and your husband was living in Los Angeles, which is a cute hour and a half away. He was living there 5 days out the week. So you didn't put two and two together that he was cheating on you? When you came on the show and you were explaining your situation, I was like, oh, he's cheating. So Heather says, "I'm so sorry to hear that, Gina, and thank you for trusting me to tell me that information." So now Heather says, "Look, I just get really emotional because I really love my family." So now she gets teary-eyed, and then Gina says to her, "Heather, have any reaction that you want to have. Like, it is okay, I get it." Heather goes on to say that yes, what happened at her party was confusing and disappointing, but she's ready to move on and let this all go. So now Heather goes on to ask Emily and Gina, what was Shannon's end goal with this whole thing? Then Heather says, "I personally feel like success breeds contempt, and even though I don't like to say the J word, I think that that's what it is." I said, "Heather, that is a word right there, because people really do start getting funny when you start elevating in life. When things are just, not so good, it's just okay, you're on the same level as everybody else, everybody loves you. But when you start leveling up, when the money starts rolling in, when you start glowing up, when things really start hitting for you, child, see who wants to be around you." That's a whole different video for a different day that I will gladly do for you and talk about one day. But I said, Heather, that is a word in itself. So now Heather gets petty and spills some tea about what Shannon told her about Emily and Gina. She says, "Well, Shannon told me not to trust you guys because you guys are both manipulative." So now Gina and Emily are both hurt and shocked, and they can't believe that their dear old friend Shannon would say that about them. And that's where the episode ends. Shannon has a lot of insecurities. She just has a very weird, chaotic energy, and Heather intimidates the hell out of her. I just think that it's going to be a battle once again between those two, and they're just never going to be friends. I feel like what Shannon did was wrong. I think it was evil. I think that Gina opening her mouth to say anything at the party was really messed up. I'm just not feeling Emily. I feel like Emily kind of is a follower. She does whatever somebody tells her to do, doesn't really have a mind of her own. And I think that she also wants to secure her spot for the seasons to come on this show. So she'll just do whatever. I'm excited for what's to come. It looks like it's going to be a phenomenal, explosive season, and I'm here for it. It looks like we're going to be seeing Noella and all of her money problems, and the divorce is about to hit in the next episode. So buckle up, y'all. We are in for a ride. But y'all, I hope you all enjoyed my review. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you all later. Bye.